You hit it too?
This call is being recorded.
I heard if you're in too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. So now we're both on record. So so basically, tell me what you think about this idea for a name. At least it's just a placeholder because I don't know what else to call it. But I say this usually at the end of my rants, and it sounds like a podcast name. And it'll start like, hey, this is Aaron Gray Talk, and this is Nick Snyder, and this is What Are We Doing Here?
I don't hate it. I don't love it.
I don't love it either, but it's a name.
Yeah.
So I always say that. I'll be freaking out and stuff, and I'll be like, well, she doesn't fucking cut the sandwich enough. What the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
So I say that. But I don't know. I just thought, so we could do something else, but I think it'd be cool for it to work into the sense of like, how like it's like, hey, I'm Bobby Lee and I'm Andrew Santino and we're bad friends.
Right.
It's like, so like it'd be cool if we could come up with something that is like
an intro.
Like a multiple person, like just like a name that fits with that kind of like idea. I don't know. Doesn't that seem like a good idea?
Yeah. I think so. It's so hard, dude. It's so hard. Like, it's like, it's like picking a band name or something. It's just like, it's hard to really find something that you're like, yeah, I love that. That's it.
Well, I picked a few band names in my time, and they were all shitty. So, like, it might be better for you to pick the name.
Give me some of your band names you picked.
High Caliber.
High Caliber is not bad.
High Caliber, dude.
I kind of like that, actually.
It sounds like if Nickelback was jizzing on your face,
I don't know.
A little High Caliber in your life,
I always loved the story of Excalibur. So, like, I kind of
remember the story of Excalibur.
It's just a magical, like, sword that helped King Arthur, basically once he found it in the rock and he pulled it out, helped him to, like, conquer lands and reach his destiny.
Oh, okay. I mean, I kind of remember, like, story. I mean, I know about, like, Excalibur or whatever, but I never, looked into the story of it.
Yeah. I love all that. I love like stuff like that, like stuff that's like always love like history stuff, but I always like anything like that with like kind of like a little bit of like magic,
a little fantasy to it.
Yeah, that's why I'm a nerd. I play those video games that I do. I'm really into like. Well, I play Call of Duty with my friends, but when I don't play that, I'll play like Skyrim and like Elder Scrolls. I love that. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, dude. And then, like, like a big dragon comes swooping down with some big old dragon tits and a big old fat dragon pussy. And you're just like, ooh, give me some of that dragon pussy, dude. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I've never seen a dragon pussy, but I've killed a few in my day.
Yeah, and then after I kill him, I fuck up that dragon pussy. You know what I'm saying? Dude,
that dragon pussy. I just collect their treasure. The coins.
The treasure's up in that dragon pussy, dude. You know what I'm saying?
I'll have to check next time. Check what's in that dragon pussy.
Yeah, well, dude, okay, so how about this? I know we always talk about Iran and Israel and all that kind of
that
shit. But so tell me what you think about this, because I have been doing like a little bit of a historical background as to, I was just curious like as to why the Jews were like persecuted and exiled from multiple lands to begin with.
Yeah,
like, what was going on?
I was like looking at stuff also. I didn't realize like I think in like 1100 or 1200, like they got like I saw that they got exiled from like I think it was like France and
they did everywhere. Poland.
Yeah.
I don't know, Africa, the Netherlands. Yeah. I mean, everywhere, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah. But the thing is, they never even let the Muslims in.
What do you mean?
I mean, like they trusted the Jews enough to like let them in, and like
the Muslims did.
No. I'm saying Europeans and all them. They're like,
Oh yeah.
but they never even the Muslims. They're like, we don't go that far, dude. You guys, you stay outside.
Well, I think some of them did in 1948, and then they left for work, and then had the door locks changed on them. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I know
Well,
some of those stories might just be.
1948 is not that long ago. I'm talking about like 1100, 1200,
Oh yeah,
1300.
yeah. But I'm saying, but there is an example of that, like up, as recent as that. Like, I think is that something that's happened. But anyway, so I was looking into the history of it, and I was like, so what's the deal with this?
Yeah.
And so from what I've noticed is like some of it is definitely just racialism
Yeah.
and pure Jew hate, right? Some of
Yeah.
it is that
Well,
undeniable.
hold on.
Right?
Let me give you one more story I heard. I'll make it quick. So
Okay.
one of the countries that kicked the Jews out, and I can't remember if it was France or like England or something. I don't know. And like I said, this was like back in like 1000 AD or 1200 AD, something like that. But I guess the Jews, like back then, their coinage was made of actual silver and gold back then.
Yeah, I
And
was going to tell you this story, but go ahead.
oh yeah. The Jews, like I guess, like I don't know how they all came together at once and came up with this. I guess a lot of them were doing it, but like the silver and gold coinage, they would like take little tiny clippings off of it and
Yeah.
like use it as a full coin, and then that's kind of like how they were hoarding money. And I guess they got found out, and people were like, "You damn Jews!"
Yeah, no, that was during the time of Isaac Newton, whenever he was around. And
The greatest
yeah, and
minds
so that's like
ever.
why our coins, even up till today, are have ridged edges, like on the quarters and stuff. And if you ever wondered why they were ridged, that's why it was like a way to mitigate clipping, and the people that used to do that the most were the Jews.
Right.
Which is like, kind of like it definitely feeds into that stereotype,
Right.
whether you like it or not. And so, but what the other fascinating thing was throughout Europe and yeah, Western Asia and Eastern Europe and all that, where all the Jews would go around. At the time, Christian beliefs thought that usury was a sin.
Yeah.
Like they would not allow interest on loans.
Right.
And the Jews did not have that in their text, that it was a sin. So they would come to these Christian societies where they were doing banking a little bit differently. And then the Jews would come in, and the king or the lord or the dictator or whoever it was in the area, seeing all these Jews coming, like, they could see down the road and be like, hey, man, you're going to gain a lot of wealth and extract a lot of wealth out of my people and my society and what I got going on here in my kingdom, and you're going to gain power. I'm not cool with that. You guys need to get the fuck out of here. Yeah. And that happened time and time and time again.
Yes.
And so, like, I think that it's not a racial or just a general hate. At that point, it's a behavioral issue.
Yeah.
That a certain group of people tend to have, and I guess that's just what it is. Like, I'm not trying to be, so like, I'm not trying to like be shallow about it or anything like that. But it's just like, hey, like, if that's like a certain personality, like, or behavioral trait that people have, like, I can see why, like, there's this like surface level, like, distaste for Jews. I get it.
But my thing also is like, we could easily have laws where it's like, as far as like usury and like interest rates and stuff, like I do think, especially like with loans and things like that, like there should be a cap. Like whether it's like 3% or 5%, whatever, like there should always be some kind of cap where people can't be taken too much advantage of. And also, there should be like a limit of some sort. But also, back in the day, they would have like Jubilee years every 50 years where like any debt you had was like basically absolved. Yeah. So I don't know. It's different. And so usury also, Muslims don't have usury. Like in their texts, they're also against usury. But what they do is anybody who's not a Muslim, they'll tax you extra, which is which is basically just like kind of the same thing, really.
I mean, I guess essentially, but it's just interesting, like how like the economics of things come into play. So like even if you do like a quick Google search on like why were Jews persecuted from multiple countries or whatever over time, like you'll always see that it was like not only the religious aspect, there was always an economic aspect to it.
Right.
So it's just like, but then even I know that you and I both have listened to a lot of what I guess most would call like the conspiracy theorist people, right? Like Alex
Right.
Jones and Joe Rogan, people like this, right? Like that's what they claimed they are. We wouldn't claim that they were, but or are, but
Yeah.
in any case, um, they that there's the Federal Reserve, right?
Uh-huh.
And the Federal Reserve is not a federal institution. It has a misleading name,
Yeah.
and it just happens to be called the Federal Reserve.
Right.
And that there's these private bankers
Yeah.
that are behind it. Who would you guess those private bankers would be?
Well, most of those families are like that are in charge of a lot of that stuff is like your go-to names like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and stuff, and most of
Right,
them are of Jewish descent.
right. And who helped instate the most modern nation state of Israel since 1948? The
Rothschild.
Rothschilds,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like I think that some of that bled into what is now the Federal Reserve, and I think that there's some experts in usury
Well,
that work
I'm
there.
all for abolishing the Federal Reserve if possible.
Yeah, yeah, it did. So like I don't know. I'm just seeing commonalities and things where I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic
Yeah.
or whatever, but I just have some suspicions that like um I don't think it has anything to do with the common man in Israel or the common Jew or anything like that. But I just think that there's like terrible people at play when it comes to politics and power and all that kind of stuff. And just how like Trump goes haywire and does things that are like seem oddball and stuff and not like status quo for him. I think that, that happens with leaders of every country. And I think Bibi Netanyahu has been a little bit wild and a little bit drastic in his choices and his actions lately. I think he needs to like calm it down because the world does not look favorably upon them right now.
Yeah,
And
but yeah, I mean, and it's definitely happened very recent, like within like the last like 4 or 5 years. As far as
yeah,
I mean, nobody would ever have thought that like a lot of Americans would be supporting like Hamas and Palestine over Israel. I mean, it's pretty uh, kind of a twist that I didn't see coming. You saw a lot of it under Obama when he was like supplying, you know, uh, planes full of cash to Iran and like kind of allowing them to develop weapons and things like that. And there, I think right around his first term is when you started to see people starting to, because people loved Obama. I mean, I think if you actually look at him for who he is, I think he was a terrible president and a terrible person and a full blown racist. And, you know, he's pretty much anti most American values, but people loved him. A lot of people did. And I think he was the beginning of starting to um, change the way people saw Israel under his term, and it's been slowly snowballing since. Is my
well, speaking of Obama,
uh
who has a very Muslim name.
he is a Muslim. He was raised most of his life in either like Malaysia or Indonesia or something like that. His real name that he used to go by was Barry Soetoro.
Yeah, Barry Sorto. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yep.
I
Yeah, and
think Obama was a CIA plan. I think he was groomed from a young age, whether it be from college or whatnot. But I think he was.
well, he had ties to the Bushes. He was like related to George Bush. Some weird way he was
Yeah,
related.
there's. I think all of them. I think somebody did a thing where like all the presidents throughout time, except for Trump,
Well, if you
at a
do look at
common
all
record.
those leaders, like all those presidents,
Mhm.
from like Clinton
Mhm.
to Obama, and even and bleeding into Trump,
Uh,
I would say it's been like a chapter in history, a defined chapter. Like before, that was like Reagan back to JFK kind of, and
yeah.
then before that was a whole different other time. But it's just like it's interesting to see how that is. But anyway, speaking of the Muslim Obama,
Yes.
very Sortoro,
Yes.
um, what's your thoughts on Memdani and him securing the Democratic seat in mayoral
Well,
seat?
we talked briefly about it, dude. I think it's terrible for New York City. I mean, he's a full blown communist and he's a Muslim. And
Yeah.
like, dude, I was watching a video the other day. Do you know in parts of New York and a large parts of London, they have Muslims that are not police, but they like ride around in like neighborhood watch, and they like their cars are like basically painted like police, and they have uniforms like police, and they like enforce their Muslim beliefs within their communities like cops.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah, that's not cool.
no, but um I don't know. It's I saw that Cuomo is from what I just saw, I think he's still planning on running in the
As an independent.
in the general election. Yeah, because I think he's banking on, because obviously I don't think a Republican mayor could ever win there, but I think he's going to run as an independent and hope that he wins the general election with like some of the people who are conservative and Republican in New York.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that could
But
happen.
yeah, I mean, either way, I don't like either one of them. But
Me either.
I think that other the Maldani, whatever his name is, I think he would be just an absolute disaster. Like it could honestly be the end of New York as we know it.
I mean, that's true. I definitely see like and maybe we spoke about this before too, but like I definitely get to see a wild swing into extremist politics for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and it's gonna swing. It's gonna swing a lot of the right extremists as well, because like the more you see this crazy stuff, the more people are gonna feel backed into a corner.
Right. I know. And it's just going to be extremity versus extremity, and things are going to become even more polarized than they already are.
Yeah,
It's just going to be wild, man. I mean, as a Cybertruck drives across
I love the
the
Cybertruck.
street, yeah, the Cybertruck's pretty cool, huh?
Dude, everybody loves to talk shit on the Cybertruck. It's like, I guess it's like cool to talk shit on the Cybertruck, and everyone's like, it's ugly, and I always see videos on YouTube and TikTok where people are like, huh, if you need proof of who your neighborhood dumbass is, look who's driving a Cybertruck. But like, I honestly, I mean, I'm sure there's still bugs and things to work out since it's a kind of a newer vehicle. But I mean, I think they're badass.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty cool. I think what Elon's doing is pretty cool. As somebody who is a pretty big Trump supporter, what's like your thoughts on the disconnect between him and Elon as
I
of
don't know.
late?
I haven't been following it as much. It seemed like they were kind of making up there. It seemed like, at least somewhat. But I don't know. It's hard for me because like there's so many things about Elon I like. I like that he's a smart guy. You know, he's created a lot of businesses and jobs for Americans who need it. Like he's created a lot of just money and things that we need. But there's also things about Elon I don't really like that much because I identify more like Christian conservative, and like sometimes like when I see him, he's just like trying to knock up as many chicks as he can and like have a dozen children and like not really be. I don't want to say he's not a good father because I don't know him personally, but I would imagine it's pretty hard to be a father to 12 different children, all to different women. You know.
Yeah, dude. Especially if one of them is Ashley St. Clair. I mean, my
And I
gosh.
know Trump has his track record with divorce and has kids with a few different people, but it seems like he's a pretty good father and he's always there with them and for them, And I think he has really good values where I will say, dude, like one of the things I look up to Trump the most for is the fact that he refuses to drink or do drugs or smoke cigarettes. I think
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
that's a pretty strong character to go forward with that for 70 some years or whatever.
Yeah, regardless of anyone's thoughts on, the politics of things, like
Yeah.
Trump as a person is just a fascinating person, dude.
Well, that's the main thing I try to do when it comes to politics, because it's easy to. I mean, although people's politics are extremely important, especially if they're involved in politics, but I try to like look at people just as a person first and just say like, okay, like Tucker, like I love Tucker. I think I think he has like 4 daughters. He's seems like a good dad, and I always like Tucker, and like I disagree with him on stuff, but like he's never somebody that I would look at and be like, oh, I feel like he's a compromised dude, or like I don't think he's like a guy that would be like paid off, or so like even if I disagree with his opinions, like I do a lot of times with him on Israel, like I still am like, oh, all right, but he's still a good guy,
Yeah.
Whereas, that's why I disagree. I feel like a lot of times with the Democrats is like, one, yes, I disagree with most of their politics, but like it's hard for me to even find many Democrats where I would look at and I'm like, oh, this is like a good family guy, or
Yeah, I don't really ever see any, man. Like it's
Well,
always like you can see by their fruits, like their children. You
right.
look at their children and they're like, it's like they crawled out of a circus. I mean,
Right.
like it's wild what it looks like. And like, and I understand kids go through phases and all that kind of stuff. And
And you
they
can't
might,
control, even a good parent, like you might can't always
right.
control your children what they do, but it's a pretty good test, kind of,
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to be shallow or whatever, but like, it's just that, whenever like there's not a masculine figure in the household, like there has to be a masculine figure, and like the masculinity has been dropping off dramatically, like
especially
over the last
like
50 years. I mean, it's crazy.
More so
Yeah,
on the left.
oh, absolutely. I mean,
It's almost like it's like outlawed, not legally outlawed, but like basically like if you're too masculine, like you can't even be in their club, It's
well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, dude, I mean, even I would say like people who consider themselves to be strictly and forever have been conservative, I would be curious to know how many of us on either side, if left to our own devices and the electrical grid went off, how many of us could actually like plant a seed and get a garden going and water it correctly and make sure it got the correct amount of sunlight and didn't have too much handling and wasn't handled enough and all those kinds of things, and like how many of us could actually like fish and how many of us could actually hunt
just
and
be
all those.
self-sufficient.
Yeah, like I just don't think that many of us can. I think we're all kind of disillusioned of it a little bit, and like I think those kinds of things they need to be like more imperatively taught on the populace, like how to be self-sufficient, because like there's going to be a time whenever like the grid's going to go out, maybe not forever, but like it might go out for a week or two because of some major issue. And like what's everybody going to do?
Or even like imagine like Iran or somebody like did cyber attacks and like say, or even not like I won't even go as far as like the whole grid goes down, but like imagine if like the internet was out for 6 months. Like
I mean, yeah, I mean, what would everybody do? I mean, like, there's so many people's jobs, and all of their banking and all of their health information, everything is tied to their little phone in their pocket, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, if that thing were to go out and you're like left with the paperwork that you didn't even freaking cared about, because you're like, it's in my email, I don't really care. So you just threw it away, and then now society can't function. I mean, whenever you have like a basketball team at the lowest level, elementary school, whatever, like, the same saying always is true where, the weakest player of your team is like how good you are, like you have to have, the best like way to have a good society is to have less dumb people.
Mhm.
You know, you want to have everybody to be self-sufficient. So like whenever something happens like that, where the grid goes out, there's a cyber attack, whatever it is, like you want your populace to be like standing and ready to fight with you, the government, not like against you, the government.
Yeah.
Like that's where we like need to like find a bridge, because there's just been such a disconnect between the people and the government. And anymore, I don't feel that it's Democrat versus Republican. I feel like it's the people versus the government. Like it's pretty wild. Like, and I feel like there's a lot of people that have that sentiment anymore.
Yeah. I think, well, like again, I mean, you talk about how I'm, Christian conservative, and I have a biblical view of a lot of things. And it seems to me as it's becoming less and less like Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever. What it seems to be becoming, and this is kind of biblically, foretold that it would happen. It's kind of prophecy, is that as times become nearer and nearer to the end, God will start to separate the wheat from the tares, or basically like the people who support good and the people who support evil will be basically a line is going to be drawn. It'll become very, very clear as time goes on.
You know what's interesting is like, so I'm not a biblical scholar in any sense. Like I've barely read most of the Bible
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Right.
and but I've read a good bit of it, because I've always been curious to know like what people are seeing into this.
Yeah.
And I still have a disconnect. Maybe I need somebody to mentor me through it or something like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe I was too young. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, in Revelations,
Yes.
the United States is never mentioned.
Well, some people believe it may be secretly mentioned as the
Igor the Lion,
no, Mystery Babylon.
Mystery Babylon.
Yes, Mystery Babylon.
What is Mystery Babylon?
Mystery Babylon is a great city. That's how it's referred to, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's referred to as like a great city in the Bible, and it is destroyed in an hour, right at the beginning of the last 7 years of tribulation,
Mm.
and the world is basically in terror and can't believe what they're seeing, because this great city that was basically the center of commerce and all this stuff was destroyed within an hour. But
Mm.
some people believe that's it's Mystery Babylon. Some people believe that the Vatican City is Mystery Babylon.
Well, in either case, I mean, it's either not mentioned in Revelation, so it's like not like part of the story, or it's Mystery Babylon, which ends up getting destroyed.
Yeah.
So, like in either case, like I just don't see where the prophecy leans in our favor either way. Like it's like, hey, we're trying to push along this prophecy and want it to happen as a
Well, I don't know.
believer
I
of
don't.
this, but
I don't know if like I think me and you talked about this before. I don't think I so much would push for it to happen, because I mean there's a lot of terrible things that happen, and I have a son and you have a daughter, and I don't want that stuff to happen, but there is hope in it. Whereas um, if you believe in what some people believe is the harpazo, which would be like the rapture, so basically Jesus pulls all of his followers from Earth before all that destruction happens. And then everybody else on Earth who's like basically a non-Christian or a lukewarm Christian is left to deal with the 7 years of tribulation. The first three of which are pretty bad. I'm sorry, 3.5, which are very bad. The second 3.5, which are absolutely terrifying.
right.
But it's not so much like I don't think it's so much that I would want to push for it. It's just so much as like, one, you just want to be aware of the times to understand if that time is getting close, and also I guess that's the main thing, is just being aware of like the time, if those times are getting close, just to make sure that you're doing a moral inventory on yourself, and doing your prayers and stuff like that, and making sure you're not like a lukewarm Christian or whatever, and also the hope in it that you won't be here for that the last 7 years, where it's going to be a pretty terrible time.
Yeah, I mean, well, if I don't know, like again, I'm not religious or I'm not maybe as spiritually as attuned as others are,
Right.
but like I do sense a kind of spiritual battle.
Yeah.
So I will like acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But like I can't articulate it past that point. It's just I felt it in this last election.
Well,
Like it felt like there was some spiritual energy behind Trump, and like that it needed to be kind of foretold and happen, because otherwise the other direction was going to be disastrous. And like I felt it,
yeah.
and that's like probably the time that I felt it most, and I think there's still a lingering of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
Well, my biggest thing for me is like, I started getting into Christianity probably like around, I don't know, like 2013 is like when I think I got in trouble with the law and like was doing drugs and stuff. And then I wouldn't say I became like really like full blown Christian until like 2015 or 16. But for me, like when you start getting into learning about Satanism and the different beings that they worship, and there's different sects of it or whatever, but there's like the Moloch, there's the Baal, and all these things. But like one of the main characters is the Baal, which is like this weird horned, what's the word I'm looking for? Androgynous like character. It looks like a man, but it has titties, and it's like, and then I started getting into that and reading about that, and people were talking about how like they're gonna make like the gay and transsexual stuff like mainstream. That was back in like 2013 and 14 when I started getting into this stuff, and I was like, I don't ever see that happening, And then like I fast forward today, and I'm like, it's kind of weird that the
Now I
side,
remember Moloch, because Moloch was the
owl,
owl
yeah,
that they burn an effigy of in the forest where all the celebrities and politicians would go. What was that called?
the Bohemian Grove,
Yeah, the Bohemian Grove. Yeah, the one that Alex Jones broke open.
yeah,
Yeah, dude, like that stuff is wild to watch.
yeah,
I
it's creepy
mean, like
stuff.
that is like legitimately creepy. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you've seen in like the first season of True Detective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I love that
wild.
season.
Yeah,
But
wild stuff.
but
But
like
like, so Ball, I know too, because Ball they relate to Balenciaga, and
yeah.
they said that there's a lot of stuff that's tied into that. They even spelled it like BAAL
Yeah.
in a few of their advertisements, and maybe on a few of their products. I don't know, but
Yeah.
and that it's tied to a lot of child
Right.
trafficking and sex exploitation and
Well,
all
like,
that kind of stuff.
and another thing it comes down to too is like, say you don't even believe in the Christian aspect of stuff and the Satanism aspect or the Jewish or Muslim, and you think it's all just BS, whatever. That's fine. But my thing is like, so many of those people, even if they're into Satanism, which a lot of them have to be, if you saw all those people that were at the Bohemian Grove doing all that weird stuff. So like, even say like they don't even, which I don't think this is true, but like say they don't even believe in like a real Satan or whatever, their motto is "Do what thou wilt," which basically means just like do whatever makes you feel good or whatever feels right for you. And that kind of is the mantra for the left these days, really. Like,
I mean, yeah, really, it is. It always. It's all about your feelings,
right.
and and
And like what
making
kind
sure
of
everyone feels safe and all that kind of stuff.
how could that mindset possibly build a good, productive society?
No, yeah, it doesn't at
Because it's
all.
just completely selfish outlook. So like, even if you don't believe in Christianity, like at least there's a lot of good stuff in there. Like I know this is kind of like the Jordan Peterson thing, which I'm not Jordan Peterson. I'm a full blown like I believe in Christ. I'm a Christian, but like I mean, there's still a lot of good stuff in there that at least can help build a good, like decently moral society compared to do whatever you want as your mantra.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely, kind of similar to what Jordan Peterson has said. Like,
Yeah.
as much as I don't like follow the guy entirely. He's come across my screen before, and I like some things he has to say.
Well, here's
I
a
don't
lot of
like a
good
lot of
stuff.
things he has to say because I'm not a Christian, like, to the degree or have the knowledge to understand it to that degree that he
Right.
does. So, like, just He isn't there for me. But he also says, like, live your life as if there is a God, and I guarantee your life will be better.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you do live like as if somebody's like peering over your shoulder and making sure you're like,
Right.
keeping yourself in check and, having discipline, all those things. Like, there was some new mantra that I heard somebody was saying where it was, discipline, isn't the like correct word, I guess. It's just like, it's best for yourself. It's not like you're not like taking away from. That's like kind of what discipline like kind of has the feeling of when you say that word, like, oh, like you have to like, suffer and like all this kind of stuff. But really all it is like what discipline really needs to like be portrayed as is that it's like, what's best for yourself. So you're like treating yourself the best that you can.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the way that you should, that's probably like, probably some people that were more spiritually attuned like you or more religious or whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
Would say like, that's like part of your moral base set,
Yeah.
So,
It's such a hard thing because I was like thinking about this the other day, and I was like, if I could build my own society from scratch and like write my own constitution and stuff, like what would I change from our current constitution and country? And then I really got
that's a good question.
Yeah, I really got into thinking about like, how I'm a Christian and like, but like, I don't, it's like the thing about Christianity is like, unlike Islam for sure, and even Judaism in a lot of ways is like, you can't force it on people, and the Bible talks about that. It's like, I can't force someone to believe what I believe. And I wouldn't want to live in a society where like, you couldn't have somewhat like free thought. Like, I want people to like maybe not believe in God, and maybe they kind of have to go on that their own journey to either believe in Him or not believe in Him or this or that or whatever. But like, I also don't want to live in a society where like we can just openly like we can just have like people are like openly like, oh, I'm a Satanist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
It's such a weird, hard, fine line. And like, I was thinking the other day, like, how would I write that into a constitution? Like, how I would want it to be.
I don't know, but this is like related but unrelated to that. But
Yeah.
it's I was talking to Mindy, my pseudo wife, and she was saying that I was basically telling her that, talking to like trying to get somebody to ascribe to a religious belief is like the same as like trying to get a alcoholic or drug addict to not be an alcoholic or drug addict anymore.
Right.
It's like you can't like force it on them.
It's even harder than that because at least, well, I guess at least in my case personally, like, at least an alcoholic or a drug addict is probably facing a lot of like negative repercussions in their life, which could help also put them over that line. Which is kind of the same with religion. Like, if you're kind of living a life that is unfulfilling or whatever, you might have some aspects of that would push you to wanting to look for something more in life or whatever. But it's just such a hard thing because, like, I feel like you feel like such a. I don't know
If you boil it down, I think it has to be like there's somebody who's lost who's looking for structure. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And the church offers you a kind of a structure to like have like, to get yourself up on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something that they provide as a service to a community, or at least used to. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I've definitely been near homeless in my life before, but I never really turned to the church for anything. Food banks and stuff, but that's about it. But,
well, I think,
but I mean, like, yeah, it's just like in a similar, fashion of somebody who's lost or doing drugs and all this kind of stuff. And then eventually they just need to be thrown into a box for 30 days with some other loonies and figure themselves out and face themselves. Yeah. So, it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I think me and you are kind of the same in that, like, when I was going through all this stuff, I never felt like I have to turn to a church or this or that. It was more, I'm like, hey, I'm on a personal kind of journey, and it's more of an intellectual thing. Like, I kind of want to like know why these people believe these things, or like some people say that this helped them. Let me see how that works out. Let me read this. It was more of like an intellectual journey, whereas I'm sure other people, come to it a different way. Like you said, maybe they turn to a church and find a good group of people, whatever.
Yeah.
But but it's
Yeah.
definitely not something you can force on somebody.
No, and I totally agree. And I don't want to like ruin the whole podcast vibe or whatever, but
Yes.
do you think that if we uh were to actually like release this kind of stuff, do you think that it would warrant us to explain our background a little bit more? Like,
Maybe
whenever
eventually.
we are, like saying like, oh, hey, like, I went through all that stuff. It's like, well, maybe like, you don't have to go into like detail or anything, but at
Yeah, yeah.
least just explain like, hey, like, yeah, like whenever we were young kids, like,
Yeah, it's certainly something I would expound on later. One last interesting thing. Well, I think it's a little bit interesting, but so I took my son to get baptized a couple weeks ago, and
oh yeah, how'd that go?
it was okay. Me and you have kind of talked about how I don't really personally kind of believe in a water baptism, but my wife and my mother-in-law were for it more, and I'm not against it. So I thought it was kind of a cool thing, a cool ceremony, whatever. But I got to talk to the priest a little bit, and I talked to him a little bit about how certain things I disagree with in the Catholic Church, like I don't, because he was actually a deacon, the guy we talked to, and I didn't know that, but deacons are allowed to be married, whereas priests and stuff aren't. And that was like one of the biggest things I always had against the Catholic Church was, why could a priest not marry a woman? And the other thing was the Pope. And then,
So you prefer them to be deacons, is what you're saying?
well, it's just kind of nice talking to a deacon because they can be married, they can have their own families, and I just feel like they can relate more to people.
Right, and that mitigates also like
Also, like the
the funny
weird,
business.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I talked to him. He just asked me about my spiritual journey and like being a Christian and stuff. And I told him I wasn't Catholic, although I'd been to Catholic mass a few times, and I love Catholic churches. I feel like Catholic churches are so beautiful most of the time. And then I was just talking to him about my journey and these things, and I told him that I'm not scared to talk about my religious beliefs. I try not to push it on people too much because I hated when people did that to me. And I told him that I felt like the best way for me to persuade people was to just give them my personal testimony about like what God did for me in my life. And he was just like, because I told him, I was like, yeah, I would never want to be like a preacher or like a minister or anything like that. But sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough for God or whatever because I get so caught up. I mean, I think regular people are like, hey, I have a job, I have a family, I have bills and stuff. But he was like, no, he's like, I think you are a seed planter. My wife laughed about that. He called me a seed planter.
A seed planter.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I think he just meant that like I'm not scared to talk about it as far as like my religion and my personal testimony, but I try not to push it on people, but I just kind of sprinkle seeds into people like, here's a little something to think about. Here's a little something to think about, So I found that interesting.
But your wife was mocking you a little bit.
She just thought it was funny. She's like, oh, my husband, the seed planter.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could be worse.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, that's cool, man. I mean, but, like, so the actual, like, ceremony itself, did it, like, give you, I don't know, like, chills, or did it, like, feel like there was something working in you at all, or did it seem
not
flat?
for me. No, I don't know. There's just something in me that, like, for my son, especially because I work on the road now, so it's like I haven't really gotten to go to church with him and my wife and kind of do that. So, which I plan on, hopefully, not being on the road too much longer, so I can do stuff like that. But it was just nice, like being with him the first time he was kind of introduced to a church and to religion itself. Even though he's only 10 months old and has no idea what's going on, but there was something in me that was like, I don't know. At least I feel like I'm trying to set him on the right path.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I guess I got out of it.
I mean, I was baptized.
Yeah.
I actually have it on video. Here at the house, I think my grandmother sent it to me on a DVD. I had to go find it. The only DVD player I could find was one of those ones that was like one of those like I don't know, 9 or 10-inch TVs that had a DVD player, or no, I'm sorry, not a DVD, VHS player in it, and we had to use a little VHS thing on like a 9 or 10-inch TV. I don't know if you remember those, like like the Guard Shack TV,
Yeah. And same thing here. Like, I was never raised Catholic, but we were all baptized. So it's such a weird thing where, even back in the day, like my grandparents and parents and stuff weren't super religious at all, but they like still were like, "Hey, we should do this whole baptism thing." Whereas I feel like it's not really a thing anymore unless you're Catholic.
Yeah, it's interesting how that tradition just keeps going on, and like as further generations go on, there's more of a like confusement, or like just like, why do we do this again? Like, do I believe in this? But like, let's just keep doing it. And there seems to be some kind of
but it was
energy
just something
of
people
keep
just
that.
did. It was just like it was what you did back then.
Yeah,
So
it's bizarre, but I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's not like the worst thing that can happen. It's definitely way less weird than some Jewish traditions that I'm aware of.
or like shooting children up with hormones and chopping off their privates.
Or doing that. That's also terrible.
I mean, we went from making sure all of our children were baptized for the most part to now they're like shoot them up with hormones and chop them up. So
yeah, it's funny. Like I was always like pro-choice for most of my life, and like it was like people can just do whatever they want. I don't really care. Like if the child's going to be set up for like a terrible life, like why even bring them into the world? And it's just like. But then, like you have children, and your thoughts completely change and flip flop. It's like a complete 180. Now I'm just like, how could anyone do something terrible like that to a kid? Like, oh my god, that is demonic. Like, if there's something that's demonic,
it's like, I don't know how else to put it. It's like kind of just pure evil, and that's one thing that Jesus said that always rings with me, and he said, any of you who hurt the small ones, who hurt the children, he said it would be better for basically a rock to be tied around your feet and your neck and you tossed in the ocean than for you to touch one of my innocent children.
Yeah. So, but like what the thing is like these parents just like openly and admittedly comply into it and and fall into these new dogmas of just like, oh yeah, you have to embrace your child's inner whatever they want to be at that given time. Wow, that is wild.
And partially what it is one, like half of the world has, or more possibly, is just like full on retarded now. But even beyond that, I think it really happened with the social media. But it's just like people would rather just be able to fit in and not have to deal with any controversy and have people look at you a certain way rather than protect your own children, which is pretty sad.
It's terrible, man. Like I don't get it. And then there's like people that are even close to me, like in my immediate family, who like, in some respects try to protect that, like, and go like, like, hey, people should be able to just allowed to do whatever they want to do. And it's just like, I don't think so, man. I don't think that's cool. You just use the simple analogy. If you wouldn't give your kid, like, you don't let them get tattooed before they're 18, like, you have to get parental consent for everything. You're supposed to be a responsible parent. What are you doing? What are we doing here?
It's crazy. It's like, it's just complete mayhem out there,
Yeah, dude. I
and
don't like it.
Especially, that's why, I don't know. I still enjoy, like I told you, flipping through YouTubes and watching the reels and shorts. But like sometimes I get to the point where I just get so frustrated with the things I'm seeing in the world that I'm just like, I have to like, get out there and work with my hands and like focus on my job. And because like sometimes it just is so upsetting.
Yeah, but for me, sometimes I get into such that small zone of thinking where I'm stuck at work that I feel like a sense of missing out. Like I'm like, oh, I'm like doing this thing that it's fine, it's cool, it's interesting or whatever, but it's just so minute when there's like all this other stuff going on. And like some of my job plugs into economics, and we follow like, oil prices, gold prices, steel prices all around the world and all that kind of stuff. So like there's some of that like that ties into the whole big picture, but I'm a big picture guy. Like I like to look at how all the cogs are working together to have a better understanding of like, how things are just operating so that I can make the best decisions for myself and my family, my loved ones around me. Like, so that's like what my whole thing is. So whenever I'm stuck into like a pigeonhole of something small, like unless it's something that's an outlet for me, like where it's musical or an artistic outlet in some sense, or spending time with like, my children and family and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, I don't know, man. It's just.
No, I agree. I still follow all the markets and current events and geopolitics, and I still and everything that's going on with Trump and the Senate and all that. But sometimes it's just things have gotten so bad out there, and I just get so frustrated where I just don't know how things turn around and get better. Sometimes, I guess. But all you can do is just do your best, and try to make your life better for you and your family, like you said, and.
I feel like in generations past, like for our grandparents and like our parents, and especially our parents, like the boomer generation had the like perfect time lapse into the perfect time period of Earth, like in its modern day. Like they just got to live through like, there was Vietnam, but like some of the boomers, they were just too young enough to go. It was a lot of them actually. So there's usually a generation that's before them, but like there's a bunch of boomers that just like they got through all of these like normal things, and like there was like a schedule plan and a projection that was given to them, like, hey, you follow these sets of rules and you're going to be okay. And most of the boomers followed that set of rules, and most of them turned out to be okay. But for us, it's the Wild West. It's like things are so surveyed and policed and stuff like that, but at the same time there's all these new technologies emerging, and new social structures emerging, and so there's all these intricacies with that people are trying to figure out, and so things are just so much more volatile to like try to like put your money on something, or you never want to put all your eggs in one basket, but like you always are like looking for like, hey, like should I put my money in Bitcoin, like US dollars losing all this value, like should I put it in that? Should I put it in the stock market? Like there's like a legal fiduciary like responsibility for like the stock market to keep rising, so maybe I should, like, but I also have like a moral conundrum with that. So it's like I don't know if that's like the best thing to do either. I don't, like, if you were looking at it from a godly sense, like what, or like in a spiritual sense, like what's the best thing to do to that? Put all your, your family's financial wealth and health into a corrupt capitalistic, system? Like, is that the thing to do? Like, or no, should you hide it and put it underneath your mattress? Like, I don't know.
No,
Like,
that stuff. I think about that stuff a lot, and I don't know. It's so hard. It's like I guess the best thing you can do is just kind of like diversify your investments as best as possible, and try to stay ahead of the up and coming and new companies and technologies as best you can. If you do want to invest in like individual stocks, um, you know,
yeah.
it's me. I like Bitcoin and that stuff. I mean, it is getting a little bit further now into it. I mean, Bitcoin's like over $100,000 a piece now. So
From what I've heard, it could go two directions. It's either going to like be flatlined at just around like 100, 210,000 for a while, or it's going to shoot like crazy high.
Well, really, I think without a doubt, it'll hit $1 million a coin in our lifetime, maybe in the next 10 years. But really, even if it hits $1 million from 100,000, that's only 10 times your money, which I mean, it is. I mean, that is a lot. But considering if you're trying to really, do well for your family and really make some money, if you put, if you had $100,000 to buy a Bitcoin and wait 10 years, you could turn it into $1 million, but most people like us wouldn't have that. So, I mean, what good would it be to put 5,000 into it, and then I mean, I guess it would turn to 50,000 in 10 years, but I mean, you could probably do just as well on other stuff as far as maybe certain real estate and whatever. So
Yeah.
it's hard trying to figure out what you're going to do. The best thing is kind of just I kind of just go with my gut when it comes to those things. And anytime I invest, I always just tell myself, okay, I'm going to invest $300. I'm just going to lose it. Let me just do it. This is $300. I'm just going to lose it. That's like the mindset I go in anytime I invest in anything, just so I don't, feel completely and totally let down if it does bad. But for the most part, for most of my investments, I've either made money, especially with crypto, or some other stuff. I basically have just been pretty steadily even,
I mean, it is amazing that like that's the sentiment that you have, because that's kind of sentiment that I kind of have on it, where it's just like, am I just throwing away my money? Because really what you're doing is you're buying into the game of Wall Street. And so you're like co-signing it, and you're going like, yeah, like, I don't really understand this at all. Like, for me to have any kind of understanding of it at all, I'd have to work in it and spend my entire career in it. And even then, I'm still not going to know all the back doors and loopholes and, like little tricks of the game that all these big cats play. And so, like, how are you ever going to gain an advantage or even understand that, like, yeah, I'm just going to put my money and my pension into this and just hope that it keeps giving the 10% year over year return that it does. Like,
yeah.
But then what if it doesn't? You know what I mean? Then it's, oh, well, now all that money that I put into that's now gone.
Yeah.
And there's all these big players that I feel that could like just, sweep the whole country. There's a, set of how many different guys that all do it at once, and they all pull their money or whatever they do. And then everyone's screwed, and then they're the new conquerors of the world, and they've amassed everyone's wealth because they had control of it the whole time anyway.
The one thing I always thought about, I talk to my wife Ashley about it sometimes, is I'm always thinking about it, although I've never come up with anything good yet, but there's still plenty of time. But the people that you always see like kind of make a ton of money and without investing, rather other than just kind of investing in yourself, is people who invent something. I've always wanted to like invent a great product.
Yeah, that's another thing though too. That's like I feel like we have not been educated on at all. I feel like that's something that they should be teaching in schools across the country. Like, hey, if you have a great idea, like, and you have a great invention, here's the easiest and secure path of getting a patent for yourself. So that you are the sole owner of your invention. Like, but I feel the patent process is like so convoluted and like corrupt. I've heard so many stories over the years of like people taking, like a grandfather who like came up with the thimble or whatever it was, and then they went in and the guys are like, hey, we're not going to give it to him. We're to scratch his name out and put ours, and then they get all the money.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff in that where you see small guys getting their stuff bought out. Like, do you ever see that McDonald's movie about
the Monopoly game video where they show like that the guy like basically like hoarded all the game-winning pieces and he cashed in the prize? Is that what you're talking about?
No. I'm talking about the actual history of the franchise McDonald's.
Oh no, what about it?
Michael Keaton's in it. It's just a really
I've seen the movie. Yeah.
That's a crazy movie, and it gives you insight into like the brains and the just fierceness and the snake, that people can be in business like that. And I always thought that was super interesting, and that's another part of me where I'm always like, I don't even know if I'd make it really as a businessman if I have to be that kind of shifty.
You have to be pretty cutthroat.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to, cut corners in ways that, might affect you, like, cutting pay of your workers when you know that they deserve more and that you're going to like bleed into them being able to feed their families, or, taking huge losses yourself personally so that your business doesn't advance and then all your workers lose their job anyway, and it's like you're always stuck into all these corners of like having to make a choice of digging yourself out of something. It seems like for a while in any business venture that you start, it's like digging yourself out of these holes, and eventually, hopefully, you find sunlight and you stay there. You know?
Yeah, it's tough. I just don't know if I would have it. But I mean, I'm sure there's a few, nice, good businessmen out there who do well for themselves and are like
Absolutely.
don't jeopardize their morals and their beliefs to get ahead. But it just seems like so many of them do.
Well, I was telling Mindy this the other day, even because she's always coming home from work, and always has stories that are terrible of like how her, in her office just like handles things, and like it's just the leadership of it is so terrible.
Yeah.
And it's because, well, mainly it's because she works in the public sector, so
Right.
she works for child youth services, and so like all of her leadership fail like immensely all the time, and I'm sure they save a bunch of kids, and I'm sure they do some good work, I'm sure of it. But from the stories that I hear from my pseudo wife, it's just mainly just an onslaught of like, yeah, like this leader's just like, yeah, this is not my job, it's not my problem, and that goes all the way up the ladder. Whereas like a job where I have, it's in the private sector in a metal service center.
Yeah.
They are four brothers that all took over a business from their one dad, and they are like a Christian-based faith family, and they like take care of everybody, give everybody fair pay, and everybody's treated like family. I never dread going into work on Monday. Like these people are just awesome. But the other way is just it's so terrible, dude.
Well, the other thing is in the private sector, you really can't afford to have a bunch of people being in positions of power that shouldn't be there. Whereas in the public sector, even if that's going on and things are being poorly run, I mean, nothing ever happens. It's not like the government's going to be going away anytime soon.
Yeah, dude. I mean, nothing ever changes. I mean, even the our own controller in Washington County, was abusing dogs, and like there was a dead dog. They found a dead puppy. What? No. Like no, not sexually. No. But I mean,
oh, thank God.
I didn't read the entire article, so who knows? But anyway, so she like didn't feed this dog and just kept it in the cage, and eventually just died in her basement. And then she stayed as the controller for like months, like a year, until like she like was finally voted out of office or whatever. Like, where is the like common sense there, man? Like, I just don't understand that. We're just like, hey, like there's this person who's holding office and they're not doing like good things in society, so like maybe they shouldn't be holding office and being the representative of the public of this county. Like, I just don't understand. It's just it all blows my mind.
Well, we brought up a little bit ago, it's something that we could probably maybe talk about on a future podcast, but just the public school system. And you talked about how they don't teach certain things, like we were talking about, inventions or starting a business and things, like so many important things that they should be teaching. And I know everybody kind of rips on the public school system, but I mean, it's warranted because it's just, especially now, some of the stuff that I see, videos going around, these teachers and things they're teaching the kids. And I'm just like, it scares me to death for my son whenever it's time for him to go to school. So
I totally agree.
We could elaborate on.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good place for us to pick up on the next podcast.
Yeah.
I think in the meantime, if we post this podcast by the time we post this, or by the next time we podcast, we will figure out a name for this podcast.
I say at the end of this podcast here, we hurry up and we rattle off a few names that we.
Well, I'm near the end because I have a family, so I have to get back to, unfortunately.
Just rattle me off too. You said what was the one you said at the beginning?
The one that I said is, "What are we doing here?" Okay,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, what are we doing here? And the other one would be I don't know, man. Like, we're boys.
Yeah.
We've been boys since high school.
Yeah.
We've done music ventures together. We've gone through turmoil together, more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a hell of a ride, dude. I mean, so I feel like we should be able to come up with some kind of name that fits good for us. Like, I just don't know what that would be.
The ones that I said to you, I can't remember all of them. I was drunk a little bit that one night a few weeks back, and I texted you a handful of them. But I remember one I said was Two Dummies.
Two dummies.
And then there was one I thought of. It was I know it's stupid, but I a lot of times these podcasts have stupid names and they catch on. But it was called Fries, Pies, and Freedom. I know
Fries,
stupid.
pies, and freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing I'm the pies.
I like fries and pies and freedom. You can be whichever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, you're definitely the tall, lanky one. You're the fries. Yeah. I'm the big fat pie. Well, come on, man.
Pies are excellent, though.
Wow. I mean, the things that our potential fans may turn that into in AI would be just magical.
Like I said, I'm just throwing stuff out there. So
I'm open to it. I'm open to it. Yeah, well, I think we can think of more. Yeah, I think we'll think of more. So we'll come up with a name, and on the next one, we're going to talk about the public school system.
And so we did this one, just audio, kind of getting used to stuff. Or you're going to upload this one?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. So we're either going to upload it or we're not. And if you're hearing this, then we uploaded it.
I say we do, just so it's there. And also, maybe within the next couple, we'll start bringing them a video one.
Yeah. No, we're going to do the video one next for sure.
Okay.
So let's do that. All right, man. All right. Well, sounds good.
All right.
You have a good night.
I'll see you. All right. Love you.
All right. Bye. Love you. Bye.